Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come on down around the campfire for a short rest with me and my wonderful companion, Luna! Hello, everybody. Say hello to Luna.
Hello!
Luna, let me check. Yes, the volume is perfect. Oh my god,
Hey!
the audio goblins have been on my side lately. I appreciate you, audio goblins. Please stay nice to me forever.
Yes, absolutely.
You know how it is as a fellow streamer.
Oh my god, last night my stream was broken into 5 pieces for that exact
Oh,
reason.
really? Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had streams like that where it's like stop, start, having to go again. Okay, let's give it up as a bad job. Give up on what I was about to do and just do something else instead. Play video games or something. Just like I can't bother working out the problem. If anybody is here from my community and does not know Luna, aka Luboffin, welcome along. I'm glad you've come across to hang out with us today. Luna's I would say a friend of mine. I know that's a two-way relationship, but we are relatively new friends. But I do consider you a friend. And also a D&D creator over on Luboffin. I'll allow you to do a better job of explaining who it is that you are in a moment. And anybody who is joining from Luna's community, hello, welcome along to Robert Hartley GM. I'm a full-time dungeon master as well. I do Dungeons and Dragons content creation for Viva la Dirt League, a comedy group in New Zealand, and also in my own right here on Twitch and YouTube and things. So we're going to be just having a chill chat about D&D today. So Luna, what did I miss? Tell me a little more about who you are and where people can find you and what you do and things. In a brief summary.
I stream here on Twitch, do all kinds of D&D things. It's very stop-start on Twitch for me because of my other life schedule things. And I also release weekly videos on YouTube. I do Crit Roll Conspiracies, which is basically when we chat about the new campaign and try and like come up with ideas for what's going to happen and like work out all the connections and just like put on our tinfoil hats. So that's very fun.
It's quite a series as well. We'll talk a little about that later. But first, let's set up this. We're having a short rest, so let's set up the short rest. What do we? Whereabouts are we? Are we in a jungle? Are we in like a desert quest? What sort of a quest are we on that we need a short rest?
Oh, not the desert. It's too
sandy. Are we at the bottom of an ocean? Are we in space? Are we? Is it an ancient?
I'd like to go to space.
Is it a space like an astral plane or something? And we're
having
having a short
that'd be
rest in the
great.
astral plane. So what are we? Are we lighting a campfire or something? Are we just floating along in the astral plane? Have we got?
Yeah. How do you light a campfire in space?
with
it's
magic.
Like Outer Wilds. I don't know if you played that.
With magic. There was back at drama school. There was like a movement class that I was doing, and we were like emulating a fire, and everybody was on the floor doing all of these, the usual drama stuff. That's like, oh, that's the same value of a degree as somebody who's learning like astrophysics. But we're rolling around on the floor doing the stuff that people expect of actors. And the movement teacher was being like, and now you're a raging inferno fire, and then and he was taking us through all these different fires, and he goes, and now you're a tiny little candle flame, and then at one point he said, and you're getting higher and higher in the atmosphere, and I was like getting more and more dead as people, and then my buddy told me after he eventually the movement teacher like took us out into outer space, and then took us all the way across to the sun, and then we were part of the raging sun, and I was like, but we've already died. You died when you took us into outer space. I was just I was just too much of an analytical mind for all that airy fairy nonsense, and my buddy afterwards was like, Hey, but I just want you to know that I did recognize and appreciate when you died when he took us into space as a flame.
I gotta take a drama class.
It's just too logical for it. But yeah, that's that. Physics be damned. We're in a fantasy world, so we can have a fire in space. We're in the astral plane where parts of dead gods and things are floating around, and giant rocks and stuff. And we've found a rock, and we've gravitated over to it, and we've set up a little campfire. I'm thinking like Little Big Planet or like Super Mario Planet or something. Anything with like a very tiny little planetoid that you can run all the way around in a couple of minutes. So we found one of them, and we're sitting on this with a campfire. So what are we drinking at this short rest? Cup of tea, coffee, astral juice of some kind of fantasy blue milk.
I've got some tea. It's
So
nice.
you're brewing some tea. I've got some garage water. So we've we've found some. Let's say we've mined down into this tiny little planetoid, and we've got a little well set up, a tiny little well, and we're bringing up astral water and brewing some tea. And then finally, what are we eating? Are we just surviving on rations, or are we gonna go hunting? Is there one animal on this planet this little planetoid that we can hunt?
Did we bring any of those flat pack like space food?
Space food, yeah, of course, yeah. We're eating toothpaste, the dry ice cream or whatever it is, the dehydrated ice cream packs.
So
That's
weird.
what we're eating.
Maybe the worst part of being an astronaut.
It is. Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day about how weird it would be to be separated from just like everyday things like that for like 6 months at a time. Because you can imagine the fun of being an astronaut and being like, oh my god, it's just the most amazing and awe-inspiring experience that humans can ever consider, to be able to look at the entire planet and like put it behind your thumb and all that. But then you think about, that would like, when would that wear off? And when would oh god, I'm still drinking my reconstituted urine and eating dried packaged food and stuff. When would that?
I'm so obsessed with space, but like, it's so terrifying. I always feel like it's a great question. Like, if you could go to space, like if like you had $1 trillion and you could go to space, would you?
I would. I'd go as a tourist, so that I didn't have to be there for 6 months. I'd definitely go on like a trip.
Yeah, do the little bungee.
I'd go on a trip to inner space, and just enough to see the curvature of Earth and look down and be like, oh my god, that's amazing. This is wonderful. Blah blah blah. Yeah, enjoy the zero-G thing, float around for a bit.
I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Especially if you could use your intelligence modifier to move, like the astral plane.
Yeah.
I was in a game once where somebody had a negative intelligence modifier, and they were like, "Do I just think where I want to go, but backwards? Do I have to turn around and think that I want to go that way when I actually want to go that way?" And it just sends me backwards. Anyway, so we're set up for our little our little short rest for the day. Then let's start at the beginning with the name. Your name is Luna, but Luboffin is the title, is the handle everywhere. Well, where's Luboffin come from? Just Luna the Boffin.
I think it's when you like set up a Steam account or something, and it's your like 15th one, and you don't remember all your other ones, and you're just like, what's some variation on my name?
Yeah.
I think that's where it came from. Like when I signed up for Twitter specifically for like connecting with D&D folks, I was like, oh, I'll just use this. It's like an old gaming handle or something. Because that was before I started my channel or anything like that, and then I just kind of stuck with it, I guess. And now I'm like, oh well.
So it had no particular meaning. You were just like, hey, it works, and it's unique, which is what you need for obviously marketing purposes. You need something that's easily Googleable, and it's not too difficult to pronounce or spell or remember the spelling of.
Although Americans really struggle with the often sound. They I don't know how they normally Luboffin. Yeah, Luboffin. Like it's very funny. And then I'm like, coffin rhymes with boffin, and then they're still like, but I don't say coffin like that.
Coffin. People don't say coffin though. Hey, coffin. You put it in the coffin. Coffin.
Anyway.
Fair enough. And the next most absolutely important thing is that people may have seen in your videos that you have little fur babies, right?
I have one.
You have just one. What is it? One little fur baby. Tell me about your little fur baby.
Her name is Molly. I have an emote. Hold on, I'll pop her in the chat. She's
know
spinning around
Molly.
in this one.
If there's ever a pet involved, people want to know my.
She's a little rescue kitty.
Oh yeah, a little rescue.
Little rescue kitty. I've had her, I think, for about 10 or 11 years or so.
Yeah. What breed is she?
I don't know, because she was just like a street cat.
Yeah, so they were like, we don't know. She's a bit of everything, bit of something, bit of a what do they call them? They call them a mutt when it's a dog, don't they? But it's
what do they call it when it's a cat?
A mixed breed. Lizzie and I, my fiance and I, are getting a rescue soon. Probably a dog though. Yeah. We've finally. A breed is cat. Yeah. A moggy. That's it, isn't it? Moggy. Lizzie and I have just finally moved into our own house. We finally could afford to get on the property ladder in Auckland, no less.
Congratulations!
Oh boy, it was a challenge, but obviously not in no small part to the incredible viewers that I have and the incredibly generous people. So thank you very much for being here, everybody. But yeah, we finally have our own place. For many years, we've wanted pets, but especially Lizzie. But obviously renting is often not allowed. But now that we have our own place, we're starting to get settled. I was pretty adamant that we're not going to get a dog while we're in the process of everything's up in the air, because I've heard from a few different like dog breeders and dog trainers rather, of like you need them to get into like you need to get the pet when you're already in a routine, so that they can come straight into that routine and they can learn from it right from the beginning. So that's what I decided we were going to do once we've more properly settled into some kind of a routine. We're going to look into rescue animals.
So awesome.
Gonna get a little dog.
I don't know if I could go back to a dog. I grew up with dogs and cats, like 2 dogs and 2 cats pretty much always. And my mom still has dogs, and whenever I go to her house, I'm just like, they're so loud and they need so much attention. Whereas my cat's just like, I just want pats, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
The one of the many good things that I'm looking forward to with dog though is that in the last 2 years since I took up streaming full time and doing D&D full time, I just have not have my any sort of physical day-to-day activities for me have gone like, because I barely leave the house some days. My Fitbit's basically retired. It said like, hey, you've averaged like 2,000 steps or something every day, and that's nothing. You need to get fit. So
self-destructed.
Having a dog that needs a walk at least once a day, I think, will be a reason to get out and about.
Yeah.
I love both dogs and cats. I'm kind of the black sheep of my family for the fact that I love cats. Both my brothers and my dad are all like, bloody cats coming and shitting in your garden, blah blah blah, and stupid. Why would you get a cat when you can get a dog?
We have like a gang of neighborhood cats that are like all stray, and like my neighbor feeds them, so he's just encouraging it. But like there's like 8 to 10 of them, and they just will like come into my garden, and I have to be like an old lady, be like, scream. Get out of my yard!
We've got a neighbour just across the way here who has 2 Burmese cats, and I've learnt since moving here that they are super friendly, super needy for attention and pats and things, and super loud, vocal as well. So they will just literally from day one, while we were moving in, they just walk into our house and they're like, meow 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 meow, give me pets, meow. And the neighbours had to come running across, being like, oh, I'm so sorry, don't worry. And I was like, don't worry about it, I've got no problem with cats. And they're like, you can just kick them out if they ever get under your feet. Meow meow. And quite often, most of the time, especially with it being so goddamn hot lately, with New Zealand's been in a bit of a heat wave, as has the world with it being on fire. But I've left the front door open while I've been upstairs working and stuff, just to get some cross breeze in. And then the next thing I know, there's a cat behind me in my room. And I'm like, oh, you've come upstairs. You've come upstairs, and you're still meowing.
Confident.
Yeah, they're super confident.
Can you imagine?
But damn, they're cute.
It's like having nieces and nephies. Like you can enjoy the cat time and then
exactly. I can get the pets and things, and then back off to the owners for dealing with any vet bills and things like that.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. We're gonna have to look into pet insurance and all of that stuff.
Oh, good times, yeah.
Man, nothing makes me feel like an adult since moving into this house and realizing all of the things that I need to get in order. Like I I got in touch with a dentist for the first time in probably like 6 years or something. Just being like, hey, I should probably do adult things like going to see the dentist and getting life insurance and all of this. Now that I've actually got a mortgage, if I was to get hit by a truck tomorrow and leave Lizzie the house. So I had to get life insurance, and then we
had to get a new like hot water heater, and we're like, what do you mean we have to?
We have to do it? No, surely there's someone we can talk to the landlord, right?
Anybody?
Yeah. So first time something goes wrong, that'll be a big pain in the butt. But yeah, I contacted the life insurance people, and they were like, oh, you should get income protection as well, in case you're not killed but you can't work or whatever, and you can't. And so I was like, oh well, this is what I do for a living, and tried my best to explain it, and they went, yeah, actually no, we can't support your income under income protection. So
great.
So yeah, there's nothing that an insurance company can do for me as an online entertainer dungeon master. They were just like, you got nothing, bruh. Just if you.
I think it's just because of the circles that I move in, but it amazes me how many like accountants and insurance people are still like, I'm sorry, what do you do? It's such a big thing that people do
it's like
now.
YouTube's not a young industry. It's been around for like a decade or more. Like people have been making a good living from YouTube and online content creation for a long time. I'm not the first person to approach them, except the banks would make it seem like it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Matthew, a good friend of both of ours, Matthew Perkins, in the chat, saying the
Matthew
etymology of the
Perkins.
word mortgage is death promise. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
What? Oh, of course. Oh, I hate that.
yeah, it's pretty messed up. Mort from Latin for death. Real talk. 21 years old. Just purchased my first house. Damn, tank tears. Congratulations.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
21. That's amazing. I'm
Oh my
30,
gosh.
32.
Yeah.
And I just got mine.
Yes,
About
we
to
got
turn
ours.
33.
Yeah, I would have been 32 when we bought ours. It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'm 33 in a couple of weeks. So right before I turned 33, and my fiance was 30. So she was like, I always said I wanted a house before I was 30. So I'm still kind of counting that as a win because it was while I was 30.
Yeah, it still counts.
Yeah. How do you afford a house at 21? I imagine don't live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, like Auckland, for instance. Yeah, anyway, that was enough about chats about cats. Let's talk about D&D. How'd you get into it?
Well, I think it's something I've always been aware of. It's like it's out there.
So you did play it like from a young age? You were aware of?
No, I'm super newbie. Like I think I started playing end of 2018, probably.
Oh yeah.
So relatively new. But before that, I was a full-time performer, dance teacher. So I was kind of like very busy with that, and I didn't really play video games. I was like very unaware of the culture, just about gaming in general. But yeah, anyway, my husband Jared is a big gamer, and he was listening to a podcast called Dragon Friends, which is an Australian podcast. It's so good if you haven't listened to it. It's very funny. But he was listening to it, and then I just sort of started listening to it as well, and I was like, oh, it's not like a serious high fantasy thing all the time, which I found very intimidating.
Right.
It's just
I thought it was like super, like no room for silly jokes kind of thing, like Lord of the Rings the whole time, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess I just had that idea of that's what it was in my head because I hadn't ever experienced it. And I think because I had approached it from watching performers do it, and because at the time I was like writing shows and stuff, I was like, oh, I can kind of see it from this angle. So anyway, I started listening to that and got totally hooked. And then very soon after, a friend of mine ran a game so I could play because he's been playing since he was a kid. And then I started DMing my first game, like, I don't know, after 2 sessions of playing. Because I was just like, I want to play, and all my other friends are already busy with other games that they've been playing for 20 years,
I will start it. If there's
I'll
not a
just
pass,
do it.
we'll forge one ourselves. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
Similar path. I got into it about 2016 or something, and played it for. I played about 8 sessions or something before my DM was like, "I'm kind of, I'm not feeling it. Do you want to take over as DM?" And I was like, "Yep, let's do it." Boom, and I just jumped in the deep end.
Yeah. It's a good way to do it, I think.
Yeah,
like
sure.
just, I mean, just get into it.
You really get I feel like everybody should play and DM a few times at least just to get a feel for, because it is 2 different games. It really I feel like it is 2 very different games. When I'm playing and when I'm DMing are 2 very different experiences. I get such different things out of them. I get such different expectations going into it, and my preparation for them is wildly different. My anxiety about them is different in different ways. Like everything about it is just 2 very different experiences, and obviously they're both in the same very niche corner of the world if you were to zoom out. But but once you're talking in the realm of TTRPGs as a hobby, playing and dungeon mastering are very different experiences, and I feel like everybody should do it, if only to get a better appreciation of what the other people at the table are going through. Like both, as if you're used to being the DM, you should try and play a few more times to try and get a feeling of what the players actually find enjoyable and what you might find enjoyable and things, and try and put those into your games.
Yeah, exactly. And you never know which side, you might find that you prefer one side over another that you didn't expect. Like
which do you have a preference over one or the other?
I don't think so. At the moment, I'm actually playing more than I am running, just because my regular game has been just a nightmare to schedule over the last 6 months. But we had a big chat this week. In fact, I quit my D&D adventure. We can get into that. I did a big I hate this campaign. Can we please do something else after 3 years?
Nice. Okay, let's talk about that a bit later.
Yeah, so I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I play a bit more than I run right now, but I think I really like both. It's nice to, as a player, to just roll in and not have all of that, I guess, background noise. I feel like when you're DMing, you're like kind of trying to keep a big overall picture of what's happening, and you're sort of like trying to just juggle a lot of balls. And it's nice to just be like, this is my character, these are the connections to what's happening in the story, and just go from there and just kind of sit in that moment. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. I do
Whereas
enjoy
when you're DMing, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say I enjoy the playing from more of an acting perspective if you really do get the chance to get your teeth into a character and a role, and particularly like scenes, and you've got real good dynamics at the table with your other players, and you feel like you can actually like get into something. But DMing I find more interesting from like a writer. It scratches the itch of writer director kind of storyteller sort of rather than acting and performing, kind of behind screen and in front of screen kind of roles. The itches that it scratches for me anyway.
Yeah, I agree, and I think running games I really enjoy because I love being surprised, and I think being surprised as a player is just kind of half of the course, because like that's what you do as a player. You don't know what's going to happen, but like it's so nice to be like, here is this scenario, and then just seeing what happens. Like, it's just really fun. So I enjoy the chaos.
I think I enjoy as well the fact that DMing takes up so much of my focus that I am always having to be thinking about something, that I don't have the time to be worried about anything else that's going on in my life. If I am anxious about something, maybe I'm stressed about something coming up, or you've got personal things going on for you, and then you start DMing a game, and if it's involved enough, there's stuff going on that it really does act as escapism for me, as like for the next 4 hours it doesn't even have the like, there might be anxious thoughts that are trying to be like, hey, over here, remember that you've got your and they're just like, no, they're way at the back, because there's all these other thoughts of NPC voices, and there's like, what's that town name called, and there's like an entire world being built in the back of your mind of like, here's a tavern over here, and here's a thing, and oh, he finally said the keyword that I've been listening out for, because that's this thing, and you just don't have time and that can go a little too far occasionally, because sometimes when I do finish like a particularly long session, I will end and then go, whew, and then my body, all of the noise will go, hey, are you listening to us again? And I'll be like, oh yeah, sorry, what did you want? And they'll be like, yeah, well, you're dying for a piss because you haven't been in like 3 hours, and you haven't eaten anything all day because you've been prepping for this session. Also, you've been standing, because I tend to stand when I'm DMing. You've been standing non-stop for like the last 8 hours, and also there's this thing happening tomorrow that you haven't thought about once, and then it all comes crashing in, and you're like, oh, that's right, yeah.
And you're just lying in bed like,
yeah, exactly. But no, I enjoy all aspects of like playing and DMing. But I think if I could only do one from Forevermore, it would be DMing. I prefer that. I prefer the experiences that I get overall from DMing.
Yeah, I think I would. I think I'd like that too. Especially because I'm too much of a I'm too nosy. Like, I want to know stuff. So like, I love getting the adventure books and like reading all the secrets, even if I'm never going to run it. I'm just like, I know the secrets. And of course, if you're running in a homebrew setting, then like, you don't know them.
You don't know the secrets.
You gotta come up with them. But yeah, I'm too much of a sticky beak. I like just sticking my nose in all the books, and
that can be quite a fun experience as well, to know something as you're playing in a thing that you happen to know because you've run the game yourself, or you've looked at the book or whatever. And then you have to train. It's like a test in metagaming, and being like, okay, I know this thing, so now I have to really put myself in the character, and be like, what would my character know about this, and how does that come out? And I find that that extra level of, I find it kind of like a challenge, like an acting challenge of going, because you come across that quite a lot as an actor. You go, hey, I know how this script ends, but my character doesn't.
You know how the scene's
I know that I'm about to die at the end of this script, or I'm about to find out that my wife's cheated on me, or I'm about to find out whatever. But you don't know at the top of the scene, and so you've got to get in that practice. So it is like the not metagaming at the table comes from the same sort of practice as the role as an actor as well. So
that's so interesting. I've never thought about it like that, even though that makes total sense.
Yeah, I do find it sort of uses the same skill set and the practiced talents of my acting career before, in a previous life, of going like, hey, I know that what the DM is describing here is all the hallmarks of a roper. So we're probably about to come across a roper, and I need to stay 50 feet away, otherwise it can hit me and drag me in and eat me. But my character's a dungeon delver and doesn't know about ropers, and so he's probably going to go across, and he's like a geologist or something, so he's really fascinated by this massive stalactite that the DM's just described. Oh, what is this massive stalactite? And I'm going to go right up against it. Fun stuff.
Fun.
So you mentioned your campaign. Let's talk a little about your experiences as a dungeon master. So you started DMing very quickly into it, and you started a homebrew world or a campaign module, or?
So I started running the Lost Mine adventure for a group of friends, and we did actually finish that, which was really fun. And but for another group, we did like a little. Dragon Friends released a little one shot. A little mini adventure PDF. So we played that because we were all Dragon Friends fans. And then we were like, yeah, this is fun. Let's keep playing. So we started with Tomb of Annihilation, which I wanted to run because it had dinosaurs in it. So that was basically my only reasoning. And because, I was so new, I didn't really have a sense of what kind of a Dungeon Master I would be. So we've been running this game. Oh my god, look.
This
so you're a little delayed on my video.
Handmade by Ajo in the chat, a good friend and fan.
It's so good. I love the wings.
Made me a Utah Raptor.
Oh my god, it's so good.
She also made me a more anatomically accurate Velociraptor, but it's stuck in here among the other dinosaurs at the moment because of moving and packing. But it's down the bottom there. Little Velociraptor.
Oh yeah, so good. I should show you my Velociraptor mask I have from my performing days. It's insane. I'll have to get it later.
Sorry to interrupt. Yes, you're a fan of dinosaurs. So you started running the module because they were in it.
Absolutely. But yeah, I didn't really have a sense of what kind of dungeon master I would end up being. You know, I really had no idea. So in hindsight, it's 100% not the adventure for me. You know, it's punishing. It's punitive. It's deadly for the sake of it because that's the name of the adventure. And it's a big dungeon crawl when you get there, which I also don't enjoy running now, I realize. So yeah, it'd been, because we can only play once a month, if that, it had been several years. We're coming up to the end, I think, we're like maybe halfway through the dungeon. I was just like dreading the prep every time, and then the game would get cancelled and I would feel kind of relieved because then I wouldn't have to worry about learn all these traps, and I just felt very stuck. They'd all given me really juicy backstory hooks that I couldn't do anything with because we were stuck in a dungeon in chills. So I just basically sent them a message this week of just being like, it's not you, it's this dungeon.
I hate the dungeon, we're not doing it.
So I basically proposed that we're going to time skip to like the big final battle. We're going to make it glorious and fun, and then we're going to do like maybe a year later with the same characters, picking up with them doing something homebrew. So I'm so excited now.
It's usually a pretty good sign, isn't it, that like when a game gets cancelled last minute because someone's had a medical or a family emergency or something, and then your first reaction is like one of relief. It's happened quite a few times with me, usually when I'm particularly busy or stressed. And I've got so much on that I feel really vastly underprepared for my home game, because that's something that made me feel really guilty when I started doing this full time and taking on like professional or paid DMing, is that my home games, because they're not paying, it felt like they were slipping, like my prep for them was slipping. Not my passion for them. I'm really passionate about those stories. Probably actually more so than anything else because they're my own written stories that I've got planned out to end of level 20. But I'm passionate about where they're going, but because they're taking so long to get there, my prep for each session is really falling behind, and so that makes me feel guilty, which makes when they actually come around, I'm like, I feel underprepared. So if they ever cancel, I'm feeling like that's fine. I'm relieved. And so when I noticed that, I was like, something's got to give. I got to start changing things. I got to actually acknowledge this and see what we can do to make sure that I can revitalize that.
It's really hard when you
for them again.
When you turn a passion into work, because you got to pay your bills, so you've got to prioritize, a lot of the time those work things. It's really hard.
In the money,
exactly.
It's something I'm hoping to find a balance of. But it's going to be a constant work in progress. I don't think I'll ever like get to a point where I'm like, tick, that's done. Like it'll always be like a thing that we're working on throughout life. Exactly. And it doesn't help that like several of those home game people, because we've been playing that campaign for 5 years or whatever. So several of those people have moved away. One of them moved to Japan. One of them now lives in Australia. One of them's about to move down south on South Island, New Zealand. So it's like a lot of it's like going online, which online is always like a necessary evil for me. I if ever I have the option, in person is 100% better. If it's online or nothing, then I'll tend to take online. But yeah, it just doesn't hold a candle to it in comparison in my experience, my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think online is amazing because I've gotten to like meet and play with so many amazing people like yourself where I never would, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Like, so it's so great. But yeah, I agree. I really super duper missed in-person games when we weren't able to do them. So it's been great to get back to it.
Yeah, for sure. I love. Yeah. I think I'm like quite a tactile person as well. So I really love having minis and terrain and things, map books and stuff to mess around with. Yeah, and it's part of the enjoyment of the preparation as well, to prepare those things and get them all out and think about which minis I've got. And that's why I love an expanding mini collection. Getting more and more minis is always like more and more inspiration for what I can use, because I almost always, if I ever hit like an ideas block for what to do for a session, I'm going, I feel like it's been 2 sessions since we've actually had a decent combat. Because sometimes my entire sessions can go by with not rolling a dice, or like I'll just role playing real time around a campfire and stuff. So occasionally I'm like, I feel like we need a combat. I'll generally just look at my minis and go, I haven't got to use this amazing weird grotesque thing. What can I make this into? Or how can I use it in the game? And obviously you miss out on some of that with online. You could argue, I suppose, that if you have a large enough digital library, you could just have even more inspiration in that sense. Scroll down and grab a digital image of whatever it is that you're using. But then
especially with the new, what is it, Tailspire and stuff. Like that stuff is so cool. I haven't played with it, but it looks amazing.
Tailspire's a great one. Big learning curve. I haven't had the time to I haven't given myself the time to actually work it out yet in a full way. But it's a great 3D tabletop simulator. And then yesterday, I got an email from one that was kickstarted last year sometime, called Dungeon Alchemist, which isn't a tabletop simulator, but it is a 3D map maker. You can basically just click and drag a square of whatever size you want, a rectangle of whatever size you want, put a couple extra bits on, make it the floor plan of the room that you want, and then click castle, barracks, tavern, whatever, like all these different options, and then click go, and it makes it 3-dimensional. It populates it with all these things. You can and I was messing around with it yesterday. It was amazing. I'm actually going to do a sort of impromptu stream at some point when I've got time next week, just to sort of highlight it and be like, look how amazing this is. I'm amazed with it. I was messing around with it for a bit yesterday, and I went into the castle tab, and they've got like entrance, hallway, stables, kennels, barracks, dungeons, dungeon cells, kitchens, breweries, all the different rooms of a castle, bedroom, throne room, and you just click and drag and it populates it automatically for you.
You
and
just
then
build it. That's so cool.
Just stick them, build them on the edge, and literally within a couple minutes, I've got an entire fleshed out 3-dimensional map that you can, I think, then export to one of these other actual tabletop sites and use it to play in.
That's fun.
Yeah, really,
it's like
really
Sims, but for a D&D.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so very excited about the prospects of that, and I think in time, online games are going to get better, closer and closer to the things that they're missing out from real in-person games. The one thing that I feel is still missing in a vast way, and online will just never trump in person for me until they've overcome this obstacle, is the fact that in person you can have 3 or 4 conversations going on at the table simultaneously without them being distracting from one another. The DM can be talking to the guy on his left here, and then the people on the right side of the table are talking to each other in character, and they're like discussing what's just happened in the scene, or the person's just popped off to go to the toilet and he comes back and asks for a recap, and without distracting anything, somebody leans over and tells him what he's missed. you can't really do that in the same way
Yeah.
in online, because any sound that's been picked up by the mic goes, this is just as important as any other sound, and everybody's going to get it simultaneously. So
Yeah.
I think once, I don't know, like if VR gets to a point where, I don't know, from the direction of your headset, your mic realizes that you're talking to somebody and only really projects your voice to that person's speakers, or something like advanced like that, maybe, then we can start to emulate that, and online at that point is probably going to come leaps and bounds to catch up to the experience of in person. But
Yeah, man, they're like VR D&D opportunities. I'm sure there are people out there working on things.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it's definitely, I think it will always be an addition for me. I don't know if it will ever fully replace in-person games. But,
I'm excited to see what the future holds, and I'm excited that we're young enough to, all accidents being aside, we're young enough to live through the future of D&D and technology and how they interact.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So you decided to get rid of this campaign, the campaign module, jump forwards to the sort of end of it, and then you're going to start again with a homebrew from that point, like your a homebrew world, or
I don't know yet. I've always run modules, so I don't think I'm going to run a module though. I want to try not having a module.
Make your own world.
But I probably will keep it like in, like maybe we'll do it in Waterdeep or something, because I like having some structure already there. A skeleton for like the city and like, some of the main factions and things. I like having that just with the amount of time that I have, and I don't have a lot of experience doing like full world building.
Yeah.
So it'll be a nice like happy medium, I think.
No, it's a wonderful take on it, because I've always done my own homebrew stuff as well. And then I was interviewing or chatting with Mendari recently, who is complete world building, even more so than me, just doesn't even take the planes or anything that exists, no names of towns or no factions as like skeletons, and renames them. Just makes everything up from scratch, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine how much of a rabbit hole that would be, because I wouldn't know. The problem with me would be not coming up with the ideas, but regimenting myself into, we're going to flesh out an entire faction today. Because I'd start fleshing out the faction and think, what do we need? All right, we need somebody in charge. All right, and I'd start writing the person in charge, and then flash forward, before I know it, 4 hours have passed, and I know everything there is to know about that guy. I know his past. I started getting into his past, and then I started, his dad was a fisherman, but he got into criminal life to feed his family because his fisherman dad couldn't support himself. So where was the dad fishing? What was the fishing town called? And where was the fish? And then I just wouldn't have structure to my world building.
What kind of fish was it?
Exactly, what fish was he catching? What does that mean about the economy? What would that? Who buys the fish from that fishing town, and which is the neighbouring town that would buy the fish? And then I'd be like, oh, that's right, I was meant to be fleshing out this thieves guild. So I, in a similar way to you, needed a little structure. So basically, when I was making factions, I looked at the factions that existed, and I went, the Jen Toher are going to be a criminal faction called XYZ. I'm not going to say it now, because a lot of the people in chat actually play in one of my home games, one of my online games called Twitch Tales, that's set in the same world.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Jen Toher is a criminal organisation called this, and the Harpers are another organisation that's kind of like Robin Hoodish, steal from the rich, do the good thing for, doing not necessarily law-abiding, but doing for the right reasons. And then I think I took the Lord's Alliance, and I kind of tweaked that a bit. And then I took all of the planes, all of the outer planes, and I went, that is way too much work. I'm just going to straight up outright take that, put it in my world. The outer plane, the cosmos, the what do they call it? The wheel of cosmos or whatever. That's just what it is in my game, because I couldn't be bothered coming up with it all myself.
And then, so much.
And then for you say like even further, you're just like, I'm not going to come up with cities. I'm just going to take the setting that already exists. And it's Forgotten Realms you normally use, yeah? And Waterdeep-ish?
Yeah. I think that's where I'll start. Like, one of my players has, like, a backstory of, like, growing up in a small town. So I'll probably build that, because that's kind of more manageable for me. And I don't know, we'll see where things go. But yeah, just so I at least have somewhere to start. Yeah. It's funny what you're saying about, like, going up and spiraling. That's why I really like, I don't know if I know AJ Winter's Tales, like, her videos are so good because every week she covers, like, a very specific topic. Like, we're doing the flora and the fauna this week, and then next week we're doing the gods, and the week after that we're doing this particular culture. Like, so she really breaks it out. It's very nice and manageable.
Good stuff. To give yourself a boundary and a topic, and then have the chat there. That might be a good idea for me to do like a world building stream at some point, so that I can be like, because then the chat would be there to be like, hey, you get enough topic. Can we? The chat can be the people around the boundary. There was another game I played at drama school called Samurai or something, I think it was, and it was a super fun party game if you've got enough people. You just need 2 people in the middle, but then everybody else around the outside is like a security buffer, because the 2 people in the middle are blindfolded, and there's a single sheet of newspaper somewhere in the floor at random after they're blindfolded, and they've both got to try and quietly find the newspaper, and when they do, they roll it up into a sword. And now now at that point, that person is the hunter and the other person is the huntee, as it were.
That's so fun.
And blindfolded, you've got to be as silent as you can and try and find them. And obviously, if you're running around, you're going to smack into things if you don't have that buffer around the wall. So that reminded me of that. Sort of the chat can be the buffer. As I'm running around blindfolded, world building. The chat can be like, "Hey Rob, this is meant to be a stream about flora and fauna. Can you bring it
Would
back?"
they be helpful though? I feel like
Probably.
my chat would just be
Probably.
Just encourage the bad behavior.
Ajo says, "Yeah, chat would help you keep on topic." Wait, you've streamed before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it'd be compounding the problem. I wouldn't get anything done. So I had something else about this topic before I want to move on. So homebrewing, you'd starting from inside out or outside in usually. So I tend to start big and think about the gods and the creation of the planes and all of that stuff, and then I get down and down. Like, I think it was Carl Sagan or somebody said, if you want to make an apple pie, you must first invent the universe, because you've always got that previous question of where did the apples come from, or where did those come from. But a lot of people I've heard a lot of dungeon masters like to start small and work out, and it sounds like you might be more of that. Like, okay, they've given me one bit of backstory that they said they came from a lumberjack. They were in a small lumberjack yard of only like a dozen people. Okay, I can flesh out those dozen people, who the lumberjacks, why were they there, what's a small level 1 task that I can give them, something like that.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're gonna see how it goes. We're gonna have a little like I guess another like session 0. We're gonna reorient ourselves. They're gonna have a chance to change anything they want to in their backstory, because we haven't done anything with it, so it doesn't matter. And then work out what kind of a game we want to play in, and just go from there. So, what sort
of stuff do you like to cover in your session 0s?
So yeah, generally just I guess chatting about the characters and things. I like giving them homework to like come up with some NPCs and stuff like that to give to me, so that I have some people to work with. Although this has only happened in one other game, because I've been running this Tomb of Annihilation for like years. So and then just like safety tools, or like I get them to fill in a consent form, very similar to the one that you sent me for the game we just played. And then compile all those things so that everyone knows, the lines and the boundaries. And then I guess just a basic, like, this is the vibe, this is the tone of the adventure, so that, we can build things together that are going to mesh well. Yeah.
Do you ever?
This is my grim dark horror game, and here's my character.
Yeah, exactly.
Sausage hands face.
Here's my. I'm fluffy bunny face McGee.
Yeah.
Do you ever run anything as like a non-canon, just like a very quick thing as part of your session 0 to be like, this is kind of the style of DMing that I'll be doing, or do you tend to play with people who know you well enough that that's not important?
Yeah, so far I've only DM'd for people that I've already played with a lot.
Right.
I mean, I didn't do that in the beginning because I didn't know.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
likewise.
It'll be really...
my first game, I had to give them the session 0 about 6 months into the game once I heard about session 0.
Exactly. That's a great thing. I feel like it's never too late to do it, and I actually encourage. I think people should do it fairly frequently.
I can't remember who it was I was talking to recently, probably in one of these short rests, but I said like it's kind of a misnomer to call them session 0s, because they check-in session, I think it should be called, because it's not just like session 0 indicates that it should be done before your session and before the first session, and then that's it. But it should be every 6 months, every 10 sessions, whatever it happens to be for you. you should check in from time to time and say like, hey, is this campaign going the direction we want? You might have had life changes and you don't want, like, you wanted gritty realism at first and you've been enjoying it so far, but nowadays, because of circumstances in your life, you'd prefer it to be more of a wacky escapism and that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to kind of reestablishing what the game's going to be, and working with them to build something new. Yeah.
What sort of ideas you got? What sort of a genre do you think you might want to play?
I don't know yet, because I'm trying to like not get too carried away because I want to chat with them all first. I really enjoy very character driven. I think the game we've been playing so far has been like fairly serious in tone. I think I would prefer to run. I've run one Witchlight game so far, which was very comedic in tone, and I loved that. I had an absolute blast. So I'd love to do more like comedic style games, but I don't know if it will be suitable for us to switch, like, do a really big flip like that, to go from a serious one to a more wacky one. So we'll probably try and find like a little bit of a middle ground. And I like the idea of just a quicker pace, like just kind of keeping scenes moving. Because in a dungeon, everything feels so slow, because it's like, well, I want to check every square foot of this place for a trap or a door.
Especially with the modules, because it can feel a bit like, but the module says there's a trap here, and I don't know.
So, experimenting with kind of quicker scenes, but then having that time to let people just roleplay and, chat to whoever they want to chat to.
Have you ever run anything for podcast, Twitch, YouTube, like you run things that people can watch?
No, I ran one. I didn't run it really. I did a battle royale with Jared, who is my husband, for a stream, which didn't go very well because we didn't really talk about it beforehand. And he built a fighter and I built a magic user, so I just obliterated him.
Just annihilated right from the beginning.
It was very amusing. And also, like, chat had the option to like help either of us, and then because they like to troll Jared, they just helped me. So
do you know D20 Deathmatch? You're familiar with D20?
Yes.
I think they do it fantastically well. Anyone who doesn't know, I'm sure somebody will put a link in the chat to them. But Caustic Phoenix and Mudcat do a fantastic job of making D&D into a PvP when it's not designed for that. It's not balanced to be a PvP game. But they stress to the people who are coming in, the guests. They stress, most importantly, this is entertainment. This is like professional wrestling. You don't write like professional wrestling is real but scripted. So they tend to know roughly what's going to happen, but they're improvising in the moment. When they grapple each other, they're like whispering, "Oh, I'm going to do a suplex to you" or whatever, and then they play along and slam. And it's all real physical stuff, but it's scripted. And in the same way, they told me and Dag when I went on, like, do whatever you want, like play to win, but also we're not about optimization, min-maxing, like beating in the first round here. So as long as a PvP kind of works in that format, it can really work well. Unfortunately, a lot of people who play it won't have that mindset. A lot of people who go into a PvP will be, I'm there to win no matter the cost, as quickly as I can. I'm going to pull out all the stops in round one and try and obliterate you.
Yeah.
And if you've got players that you anticipate being like that, it can still work if the dungeon master is a good enough mediator to implement, like, there are checks and balances within the actual terrain that you're fighting in, or there's like there's an audience watching, and there is actually like an all-powerful games master type character in the game itself who's like, you get inspiration for that, or I'm gonna, and then he sets the guy on fire who's just, obliterated the other guy because he did it too quickly, and the audience are like, boo, in one of those Roman sort of ways, and he's like, nah, boo, and then he snaps his fingers, and the other guy comes back to life with half his hit points back again. So you can like still find balance within it if your players really are like, I'm all out to win.
Yeah, I think like you say, it's about crafting a scene as opposed to trying to win an outcome, collaboratively creating a scene. Joe's just reminded me in the chat that I have run a game for Twitch as well. My apologies, Twitch chat. Yeah, we've only played 2 sessions because life just keeps conspiring against me streaming. So annoying. But yeah, I've been running Lost Minds for a chat on Twitch, which has been a very interesting experience.
You run it for the chat?
Extremely
so the
different,
chat pick and choose what's happening with the character and things?
Yeah, essentially I'll just be like, this is the scenario, what would you like to do? People throw out suggestions, I quickly chuck them in a poll. They vote on the poll.
if we've got people in the chat from your community who like that style, and you're not getting enough of it from Luboffin,
you're definitely not getting enough of it from me.
I also do the same thing every week on my channel on a Sunday for me, Saturday for most people in the Northern Hemisphere, called Twitch Tales, where the chat came up with a character many a year ago. What does it feel like? It feels like 2 years ago now, maybe a year and a half. And they're now a level 5 ranger, and tomorrow morning they are about to go into the finale of the current arc of the campaign, fighting a green dragon. It's very exciting stuff.
Yeah, I often lurk while I'm having like my morning coffee on a Sunday.
Nice.
Lurking in the chat.
Very very exciting session tomorrow. So I do the same thing, and it seems anybody who's a fan of Twitch Tales, you can head over to Luna and pressure her to keep going with
6 weeks time.
her version of it as well. Aja took time off for tomorrow's session. Damn, Aja, that's commitment.
Amazing.
It's going to be a good session. I'm very excited.
I'll have to tune in. I've got my niece coming over. I'm going to try and run a little D&D game for my niece who's 9 and my kid who's 5.
Gotta get him hooked.
It's going to be fun.
Get him hooked early.
Yeah, I'm the weird dragon auntie. Like for her birthday, I'm like, here's a copy of The Hobbit. Here's a dragon mini. Here's some D&D dice. Here's a... And she's like, I'm like, yes, come to my house and play.
my nephews and niece all live in the UK, unfortunately, so I don't get to see them in person, but I've been trying to sort of stay in their life a little more by like phoning them for face chats and things. And maybe a couple of months ago I learned that the 6-year-old was doing a project at school where he was learning about mythology, and he was learning about like Greek mythology and stuff, and my eyes lit up. I was like, I've got something we can talk about. And I immediately reached down and got my Minotaur mini, and I was like, hey, have you heard about Minotaurs yet? Here's the story of the Minotaur. And he's like, it's something about flying too close to the sun. And I was like, yeah, he made wings like this. And I got in his bat bob mini. He was like, yeah, he made wings, and he flew and he got into the sun, and I was telling him about the Medusa and the Gorgon, and yeah, it was a moment of bonding, and it's the closest, the most I've come to missing the UK since I've moved here like 14 years ago. So I was like, damn it, if I was only in the same country, I could actually bring him around and let's get him hooked on D&D and minis and all of that.
Yeah.
To completely change tact, I want to ask you about your dancing career, because my fiance is a dancer and trained as a classical dancer. She's got a bachelor degree, some kind of qualification in ballet, and you used to be a dance teacher as well, right? So tell me about your history as a dance teacher.
Yeah, well, so my mom started a belly dance school when I was about 4. So I grew up in a dance studio. Basically, we had like 5 nights a week running classes, because I'm not sure, like, if those of maybe weren't aware, but there was like a very big boom of belly dancing in, like, when would have that been? Like around Shakira's first single. There was like this huge boom in like belly dancing. So we had this huge school, and basically every day after school I would go to the studio and do classes or whatever. And so then I started teaching belly dancing. I think I was about 12, and I started teaching like the little kids. And then I did some dance at school, just like contemporary dance, but I'm not like flexible enough at all to do that kind of stuff. So, and so I did belly dancing for like the first, I don't know, however many years, 20 years. And then my mum decided to retire, and I decided to try something new. So I tried swing dancing with a friend. I went to a class, and I was like, oh, this is it. Like, it was so different for me because it's partner dancing. So it's so collaborative, which is so different to, obviously there's collaborative dancing even when you're dancing solo, but it was just a very different experience. So I was immediately hooked on that. And then I started teaching swing dancing in 2009? No, 2007. Anyway, it was like, mid-2000s. And then I opened my own swing dancing school in 2011. And I did that until 2015, when I sold my school because I just wanted to move on to something else.
Just time in your life to be like, new chapter.
Yeah, exactly. And I also did burlesque dancing for a long time. So I had a burlesque dancing school as well as a swing dancing school. So it was kind of like
so you owned
full-time dance.
Two different schools?
Yeah, I co-owned the burlesque school. So there were 2 of us running that, and then I ran the swing dancing school. So yeah, I don't know how I did it. It was a very busy time of my life.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Thank you very much for that hype train, everybody. I've just noticed that
Oh, yay!
we finished level 1. We were on 68% for a long time. People were holding out on that last 1%. Thank you, Ariel.
So good.
It's very nice of you. So belly dancing into swing dancing into burlesque dancing, and then so you sold your swing dancing but kept the burlesque dancing school?
Oh no, I actually ended up leaving that company in it was right before my son was born, so that was like 2015. Yeah, so I ended up leaving that school. I still worked for them occasionally and still performed. I stopped performing burlesque in about 2019.
Right.
Yeah, I just got a bit like done with it. It's a lot of late nights, especially burlesque. I'm not a night person. I'm definitely a morning person. So it sounds silly, but like performing at midnight, every weekend was just getting a bit much, because that's when people go to a burlesque show. It's late at night. And just a lot of travel and stuff. And yeah, I had my son, so it was just a good time to
time to
change things
on.
up.
So you went on from burlesque and he bought another school, started doing jazz,
So after
it's time to move on. I've got no time for it. Let's start a ballroom school instead now.
Honestly, you're not far off, because it was only a year later that I started my YouTube channel. I can't help myself.
This isn't going to take up all of my work, all of my time.
No, absolutely not. I'm like, I just need a little project, just something small, Yeah. But also, we wanted to buy a house, so I needed to get a job that like paid consistent income, as you are aware, to get the bank to give us some money. So.
No, it's not a real job.
No,
it's even more amusing in like the uncertainty of even banks in being in the future, and they're the ones being like, no, it's such an uncertain career. I'm like, do you know the future of banks?
Yeah. Have you looked in the mirror? Yeah.
So you left that and took. So what did you go into as your stable, your real job, as they used to call it when I was applying for like unemployment during my in between jobs as an actor? Have you tried looking for a real job? I have a degree in this job. This is
it's so frustrating.
Tell that the next time you try and unwind by watching anything on TV. Turn it off and say, no, that's not a real job.
Oh anyway. My gosh, yeah, it's so infuriating, especially the arts sector. During the last 2 years, it's been infuriating. Which also in hindsight, I'm very glad that I was not a full-time performer in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's been absolutely wild, but. Yeah, so I work. I've always worked at my like day job. I work as a receptionist in a psychology clinic, so that's just like admin and stuff. So I was basically doing that like 1 to 2 days a week when I was running my schools, and then I slowly amped up, and now I'm working there 4 days a week. I just dropped a day so that I could do more YouTube things, which is good.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So that brings us into your YouTube quite nicely. What made you start with YouTube? What made you start going, let's start making stuff?
Yeah, I think I missed having a project. I missed performing, and of course, like, this kind of stuff is performative in a way, even though it's much more relaxed and much, I guess, closer to my true self, I suppose. So, and then Satine Phoenix did a tweet, which was basically like, we need more women GMs doing stuff on the internet. And I was like, I'm a woman.
I'm a GM.
I know how to do some things.
I'm a GM. I'm a woman, and I know how to use the internet. Oh my gosh, she's talking to me.
She told me I have to do something. I have to do it.
Yes.
So I started a little YouTube series called DM Tips for Noobs from a Noob, because I was desperate to make sure that everybody on the internet would know that I don't know what I'm talking about. So please don't be mean to me. Yes, starting these little 5-minute like how to play D&D videos. Which are so hilarious when I watch them now.
And was it starting from nothing? Like you had no audience from anything else that you'd been doing? Like so it was just like, much. Hey, I'm starting to just shout into the void and hope for the best.
Yeah, some people from my like performer career did follow me along, which was very pleasant and nice. But yeah, basically it's like, you came to Facebook for my sexy burlesque things. Sorry, everybody.
I'm
now
doing
I
the
talk
D&D
about
stuff.
dragons. you know, they're not mutually exclusive, but yeah, so that's pretty funny. So I did have a few people come over very early, and yeah, I don't know, I just was just happy like doing those for a while, and then
What was the sort of timeline? Were you putting one out every week or every
yeah, I
month?
think it was about weekly or fortnightly. But they were very short videos, or like 5 minute videos, because I wanted them specifically to be very short, which in hindsight is funny because YouTube now it's like all about long form content.
YouTube can never make up its mind. It'll be short form soon
I
enough
know
again.
they want, yeah, well what do they call them? Yeah, the shorts.
They
That's
want
what they call
YouTube.
them.
They want YouTube Shorts and long form content.
I just want every platform
They
to
don't want.
stay
Yeah,
in
just
its
stay in your
lane.
lane. Stay in your lane.
Oh,
TikTok can be
so
TikTok.
I'm
You
like,
stay as YouTube. You
well,
weren't.
TikTok
It's
just
not.
released 10-minute videos. I'm like,
Oh,
what are
Jesus
you
Christ!
doing?
Everybody's
Stop it.
trying to be everything,
Yes.
and
Step short.
and none of them seem to understand what it is that makes them successful. YouTube released Shorts because TikTok were doing well, they were like, it must be the fact it's vertical video that's the success.
Yeah, we'll just do the exact same
We'll
thing.
just make it. We'll just make sure it's vertical because that's the one thing that makes it important. Oh, Jesus, YouTube, you're missing the mark so far. Anyway,
Very frustrating.
so you started doing short, like 5 minute videos, just tips of things that have popped up in your game. Did you have like themes to them, or was it like today we're talking about just this thing that happened to come up for me?
No, yeah, it was very like I really wanted a very, very beginner focus because I remember when I first started DMing, it was pretty overwhelming. Knowing where to start and things that seemed obvious to other people just didn't seem obvious to me. Like I remember getting my first like getting Tomb of Annihilation and being like, okay, but how do I actually run this thing? Like I don't really understand how to actually do this. You know, or like just yeah, just seeing things in motion that have been explained in books, but you know, you just got to kind of do them. So I wanted to try and like really solid, like you've never played D&D before, maybe you haven't even looked at the player's handbook. Like this is kind of very beginner stuff, and also just trying to see myself represented in the space more.
Right, yeah.
So you know, to hopefully appeal to women who maybe thought that it was not for them. But yeah, there are lots of women and femme presenting people and you know, and non-binary people. So
yeah, it's why I started as well.
Yeah.
I just found that there was no white straight men in the
Yeah,
in the
you know,
industry
it's-
at all. They're just it's so hard to find. So hard to find anyone.
it's really tough. I don't know how you do it.
I'm a martyr, to be honest.
you're an
I
inspiration.
struggle on, but
Sorry, I piqued my mind.
in this.
Anyway, yeah.
AJ makes a good comment that making them the same format does increase the cross-posting capabilities so that people can make a short video and then just stick it on both YouTube Shorts and TikTok. Even though I'm pretty sure the like fine print that you're meant to sign says that you're not going to be making, that you're not going to be using the same content for both and things, but people do anyway.
And also, but what they do is they promote videos that are made within the app. So if you edit your video on TikTok, it will promote it. But if you use a professional editing software that you pay for, it won't promote it. So you have to make them individually in all of the apps to get them boosted by the. That's why I don't do short form content.
A pain in the butt. So you moved on. So you just started seeing a natural growth of people checking out your videos, or did you like did you promote anything? How did you find growth in your channel?
Yeah, it was mainly through Twitter that I met people, and I got some very lovely support. Do you know Anto from Icarus Games?
I know
from the
Icarus
UK.
Games by name, but not not their content.
So he basically started commenting on my videos like very early on. He was always very supportive, and he kind of like shared them a few times with his community, I think. So that kind of brought some people in, and but they were very like, you know, modest. I think like a good video would have like 100 views. Yeah, and then I was just kind of working on like making connections through Twitter. So that's primarily where I was like meeting people, and then I made a pivot to more entertainment-based content. Just over a year ago, so I was doing like cooking videos,
cooking was the next thing I was going to ask you about, actually.
Yeah, or like playing, like I think I did a video where I played a solo RPG and I tried to make it like funny. So yeah, I tried to flip to more entertainment-based content rather than educational content because I find that more fun.
Fair enough.
And fulfilling.
The education side of things with YouTube content is a real interesting one because there's so much out there. Every man and their dogs have got a DM tips thing on their channel, and and how to play the game and how to make characters and stuff. And yet it's one of my most requested thing in all of my streams. People are always like, hey, have you got any videos telling us, how to get into the game? How do I want to get into the game? How do I start? And I'm like, I really should make some videos about that. And I haven't in all this time because I felt like it was saturated content, and it's all out there. But if somebody is getting new into the game and they don't know how to get into the game, they also don't know how to search for the things that they don't know about. So I guess it does make sense that they go to the person that they like content of already. Oh, I've seen him from Viva la Dirt League, so I know his stuff and I like his D&D. So how do I get into the game? I'll ask him. I'll go watch his content and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, there's so much out there, but there also does seem to be this desire for it. I mean, So people. I mean, when I did my tips videos, I think once I got an audience, my tips videos did perform better than my entertainment videos because my entertainment videos were just a bit too broad and weird. It's like, how do you, I don't know how to pitch this weird video that I made of me rolling a random character, that's just kind of funny. Whereas people are, the search terms are like how to play D&D,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. I really liked your sort of point of uniqueness with the cooking videos, though. I really liked that you were doing D&T tips while you're also cooking. Like you'd often be baking cookies or whatever, or going through the what's it called, the Heroes Feast cookbook. You went through a couple of those, didn't you? So so that was just you saying, hey, I enjoy cooking, I enjoy baking, I enjoy D&D. Let's see if this will give me something that's enjoyable for me to make.
Yeah, something, and I enjoy editing those videos a lot more because it's more narrative editing as opposed to just a talking head edit. So building the story of whatever project it is, it's really fun for me to edit. I really enjoy that process. But and then then I became a Critical Role YouTuber. So now I'm back to talking head videos.
The YouTube, the food-based stuff is just on the back burner, and you intend to get back to it, or you just kind of feel like it's played its course out?
No, I definitely want to get back to it, even if it gets 1% of the views. It's just too fun. I enjoy doing it. It's so much fun.
It's important, isn't it? That you've got to find the success in the channel in some way. You've kind of. And it's kind of like the big actors are always saying one for them, one for me. You've got the big actor that does a studio thing that's going to earn a lot of money, and then you find them in something that is barely even advertised, and they're like, really, Benedict Cumberbatch is in that? Because it's passion project. And in a similar way, it goes into all things. You've got to do one for them, one for me kind of thing. And if the algorithm wants this thing, you kind of got to do that thing. But then you should never really give up on doing the stuff that you enjoy making as well. Especially if you are you may not be experiencing the sort of success that you want from your channel to eventually get to, but as long as you are experiencing some kind of growth or some kind of success, some kind of financial income or whatever it is that your metric of success is, then you can afford to be I'm going to focus on what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also I love Critical Role, obviously, and I talk about it for hours every week. It's I love it, but I don't love the idea of always being tied to someone else's content. So I'm hoping that
was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you about. What's the concerns regarding that? Well, I will circle back to that. I just want to point out that everybody in the chat is now taking the piss out of all my cooking skills or lack thereof. And Rob would do a disaster stream in the kitchen. I'd watch the mayhem. Loken says, yes, it would involve toast, which you are correct. You are not wrong. Most of my bachelor chow would be toast, beans on toast, jam on toast. Today we're doing banana and peanut butter on toast.
That's gonna be there.
I can make a mean sandwich. Sandwiches are my forte.
It's the food of your people.
Yeah, exactly. I can cook if I'm following instructions and it doesn't have to be time sensitive, because by God, am I anal about instructions. I'll go basically my role in the kitchen is sous chef. Lizzie takes over what we're actually doing, and then she says, cut these carrots for me, wash these potatoes, do this, peel that thing, open them jars, crush that garlic. She tells me what to do and I do it. Because if she's ever taken a night off, or I'm doing the cooking or whatever, or if she's left and I'm like, well, I got to fend for myself tonight, then I might branch out and do something that involves a recipe. But then I'll go, It says I need 2 millimeters of this stuff. 2 milliliters. How much is 2 milliliters? Is that? It says, oh well, 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters, so it's 2/5 of this. Okay, how am I going to measure 2/5 of this spoon? Where she'll be like, it's a dash of it, it's a pinch of it, it's a this. You just do it, eyeball it. I'm like, but what if I eyeball it wrong? what if 3 millimeters
will be ruined?
3 milliliters makes it too much, and 1 milliliter is just not enough. How do I know?
My favorite video I've ever made, I think, was my first cooking video, because my sister did it with me, and she's actually a chef, so she knows what she's doing.
Yes, yeah, I watched that one.
Yeah, whereas all my other videos, I'm just like, like I think I've posted 2 that have been a disaster out of the 5 that I've posted, so it's not a good success rate so far. But
Fair enough.
I can't remember what we're talking about.
So the next thing I was going to talk about is Critical Role. So for the next part of this section, spoiler warning in case you haven't caught up to episode 18 of campaign 3 of Critical Role. We're probably going to be talking about a lot of it. We won't obviously just be outlining all of Critical Role. You can go watch that yourself. But it is a big part of your career as a YouTuber. It's a big part of my inspiration of why I got into the game, all of that stuff. So we're going to start chatting about Critical Role stuff. So firstly, I have watched all of campaign 1, all of campaign 2, and I got up to episode 14 of campaign 3 before today, and then I remembered I'm going to be talking to you, and I'm going to be talking about Critical Role. I need to know what happened in the last 4 episodes that I was behind on. And so I went back and I watched all of Matthew Perkins' recaps, and then and then once I'd watched his recaps, I went into yours and watched the Critical Role conspiracies, because I love that you two have this 1-2 punch every week. Of he does just a recap and his opinions of it, and then you delve into the individual parts of it and how they interact, and I love them. It's genuinely, when I do finally catch up to Critical Role, it's always I watch the episode, and then before I watch the next episode, I watch Matthew Perkins' recap, and then I watch your conspiracies, and then I go back to watch the next episode. But man, it's so much content every week.
That's lovely. It is a lot. It's
so
a lot
much
to
content,
cover.
Which is why I sometimes end up a month and a half behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to point out that you accidentally said Matthew Merkins, and for a while there, we were really petitioning for his community name to be the Merkins. I don't know if he's still in chat, but it's gonna happen.
Matthew Merkins.
Matthew Perkins. He's the whole reason I started making Critical Role videos, because I was feeling a bit stuck in my channel. I wasn't really seeing much growth, and I was just feeling a bit unsure about the whole thing. And money is not everything, of course, but if you want to make a living, it kind of is. So I really wanted to. I just wanted to hit the YouTube partnership requirements, which those of you who don't know, it's 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours watch time, which was a very slow process for me. And he's like, I don't know, why don't you try some Critical Role videos? Sometimes they go off, and then you might hit those requirements. And then that's exactly what happened. I made the first Critical Role video, and it completely exploded, a billion times more than any of my other content. And and then just went from there. Then I was like, well, I guess I'm making these now.
But you were a critter before that? You were a huge fan of the Critical Role? Not you were I guess I'll make Critical Role videos and have to trudge through all of them and pretend like I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'm faking it this whole time. Although it's funny, I haven't watched all of campaign 1, and people are sometimes so shocked when they hear that. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's a long campaign, man.
It's a long campaign.
I'm chipping away at it. I'm on episode 80 or something.
Right, yeah.
I'm getting there.
Whereabouts in the story are you? And I won't spoil anything.
I'm actually kind of immune to spoilers now, because I kind of have to be
everything.
Because campaign 3 is so connected to campaign 1.
Yeah. True.
So I kind of know all the big plot points, but where am I up to? It's been actually several months since I started listening. They were in the Feywild. They went to Singon, which was in the Feywild, I guess. And then
so they're in their
then they had the big fight, the dragon fight.
Chroma Conclave arc.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just had the fight with the white. Yeah, I think it was the white dragon. Yeah, it was the white dragon, and then yeah, that whole bit. That's kind of where I'm up to.
Umbrasil or something. I can't
Yes.
remember. It's been so long since I watched it. That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's campaign one's still my favorite. I started with campaign one watching it. I started watching when they were on episode like 30 something of campaign one.
Yeah.
So I've been there almost from the start. Got into D&D in about the same time. There was no one to play with. I got it, like, it was in my veins. I needed it from the first time I played it, but I played a one shot, never played again for the next like 6 months. But in that whole time,
no.
I was like, I need to play this again. I need to find someone to play with. I don't know how to play the game. I don't know how to find someone to play with. So I was like watching it online, and it was helping to somewhat scratch an itch. And it was also one of the things that really taught me about how the game works and the rules. And I'm such a nerd for rules, and I'm quite analytical minded and logical, and I think about things a lot. And so I would watch their episode, and every time that they would mention a spell or something, I would pause it, look it up, look in their PHB, be like, oh, is that how this spell works? And then I'd start it again, and they would completely use it wrong because they were still in the early days of like moving over from Pathfinder, so even Matt didn't really know the rules and stuff. And I'd be one of these nerds going, that's not how it works. Actually, Keyleth needed to say there was a vocal component to that, and I was one of those people in the chats, unfortunately. So I've been there from early days. Finally, like caught up to date around the middle of the about the start of the Chroma Conclave act, and then I have been watching since then. With usually, I think the most I've ever got behind was like 3 months or something. I finally got behind on something while I was doing other stuff, and I was like, right, I'm sitting down. I'm actually putting concerted effort into catching up, and I caught up again. And since then I've only ever been like 5 episodes behind at most before I'm like, all right, I really need to sit down and watch it, or have it on in the background while I'm watching other things. So because it's kind of, your content is often tied to their content and the Critical Role conspiracies and stuff, do you watch it on Twitch when it's live and then again on YouTube, or like do you just watch it the once, or because of time?
Yeah, I just watch it the once. So until quite recently, I was working at my day job on Fridays, so hopefully my boss is not in the chat. I don't think she even knows what Twitch is.
See you later, Big.
Hey, if you're out there, say hi. That would be the gag of the century. But anyway, I was watching it at work and then going home and trying to film, like trying to watch at work and pay attention and then go home and film. But I recently changed my hours so that I would have Friday off. Right. So I watched the episode live. I try really hard not to get distracted, which is super hard for me because I'm a very distractible person. So I often will be like taking notes, or like I've started painting minis because I find if I have something to do with my hands, it helps me focus.
Okay.
And then what I've been doing now is that I try and go through my YouTube comments from the previous week, because that's a big part of my videos, is kind of actually discussing theories with the community and talking about other people's ideas, because they have better ideas than me.
Yeah, very admirable part of who you are, and your sort of content is like that engagement with everybody that engages with you. You're there to actually speak to them on your Discord and in the comments of the YouTube and things, and be like, what are your suggestions, so that I can straight up steal them and put them in my video.
100%. They got way better ideas than me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I try to do that before the episode premieres, like go through the comments of the previous video and see the theories and pull them all out. But it's so hard because you never know what they're going to focus on in the episode. So some of them are really great, but they just get discarded because I just can't fit them in with what happened that week. So I try and do that beforehand, and then it depends on I watched that on Friday. The 5-hour episodes have been killing me lately. I really hope that they
over time. I'm like, good God, long. I can't catch up with 5 hours episodes every week.
It's so long. And then they did that like 3-hour one last week.
Yeah, I watch most of my content at 2.5 speed, just because 2.5 if I can manage it on podcasts and things. Usually 2 speed on YouTube, or 1.5 sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm always like speeding things up, because I'm like, I just can't. I can't put 5 hours into it, but I can put 2.5 hours into it while I'm doing something else.
Yes.
But I was mentioning to some Mendari, I think the other day. I was saying the big downside to that is that if I am watching on double speed, and then I am distracted inevitably with something. And if I'm distracted with something for 2 minutes, I've missed 4 minutes of table content, which can be everything in a D&D game sometimes. So then I go, wait, what's happened? Oh crap, yeah, and I sometimes have to skip it back.
When I was not watching live, I always put the combat on speed because that's where I totally lose focus is combat.
It can drag whilst people are looking up what they're doing and stuff.
Yeah, so but I find when you listen on speed, it's hard to get the emotional tone sometimes of some of the role playing scenes.
The thing that I've noticed, because I've listened to everything, I listened to a lot of podcasts in my downtime, and I have done for many years now, at least a decade. And so I've always listened, because I listened to so many podcasts, I've always listened, increasing. At some point many years ago, I was like, oh, what's this? Oh, I can listen to a 1.1 speed, 1.2 speed. Oh, okay. And then I'd get used to it over time of listening to them at that speed. I eventually got up to like just under. I think I trained myself to be able to still perfectly listen and take in the information that was being said at 3 times speed for a lot of my podcasts. And then other people occasionally would hear my podcasts if I took my headphones out to be like, what? And they're like, what the fuck are you listening to? What is this chipmunk? And you can't possibly be understanding. It's white noise. And I'd be like, no, I can understand what they're saying. I wouldn't be able to repeat it back to you because I didn't do it in one go. I trained myself to listen to that. And so my head kind of processes what they're saying in that speed, especially if it's not a new podcast. You're used to the host's voice and things like that, so you can pick things up.
Yeah.
So I can pick up on those things, and I feel like because I have kind of trained myself to consume things in that way, all of the beats of the drama are all compressed by the exact same amount. All of the comedy moments are all, the 1, 2, 3 of comedy. They've all been compressed by the same amount, so it all still rhythmically hits and lands, but. So I can kind of feel when there is like an emotional pause, because it's a pause of the same length, respectively, as there would be between people talking and things. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Obviously, I don't listen to it at normal speed, and then again at 2 times speed. So I can't say for sure whether I miss anything, but I feel like I don't miss anything because I'm used to everything is at 2 times speed for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's funny. I edit my videos usually at 2 times speed. Like the first edit, and then when I listen to them at the regular speed, I'm like, oh my god, it's so slow.
Yeah, I do that when I am in like a car ride or something, and I'm no longer listening on podcast in here, but I'm listening from my phone so that Lizzie and I can both listen. I have to chuck it right back down to one time speed because she's like, even like 1.2, she's like, you've sped that up, haven't you? Damn it, how can you tell? It's only a 1.2. But I'll turn it back down to one speed, and then it's most noticeable when the theme song kicks in, because the theme songs are always so slow.
Yeah, they always sound so
you're like,
janky.
oh wow, is this the normal speed of this theme song? Tangent as well. I recently watched Arcana. What was it called?
Yes, Arcane.
Yeah. And I watched that on Netflix, and Netflix gives the option of 1.5, so I listened to that.
You didn't.
I watched it at 1.5, loved it. But the theme song to that, the Imagine Dragons theme song, I've heard it on the radio since, and I'm like, this is slow. This is stupidly slow. It beats so much more exciting for the show. Like it had a better.
I'm gonna have to
tone.
try that and listen to it.
It was a better tone at 1.5. I found like the song really hit.
Oh, how good is Arcane though?
Oh, so good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it right from episode 1. So many people were talking about it. It became like Squid Game immediately, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to watch it. I'm gonna have to watch this because everybody's talking about it. And as soon as I watched the first episode, I was like, I can see why.
Yeah,
such a lot of world building, and I'm loving it a lot. So you watch the thing live, try and take notes, try and keep your brain engaged in what's actually happening, because a single throwaway line from Matt Mercer can mean all of the difference between what's happened.
Yeah, although I've started to relax about it now, because it's just inevitable that I'm going to get things wrong, or I'm going to miss things, and that's okay, You've
got an entire Discord. You've got YouTube comments. They can tell you, you said this bit, and here's
people
a timestamp.
love to tell me when I'm wrong. So it's fine.
On the internet? Nah.
Never. So I've just kind of accepted that that's just part of the course.
Yeah.
And then I try and finalize, I try and write a little bit of a script, but just because it speeds up my editing if I'm not editing the same take 100 times. Try and finalize that while the episode is happening if it's not too intense. And then I have like I said, I've got a 5-year-old, so I try and send him to my parents' place on Friday nights so that I can film. So if that happens, I can film straight away and edit, and then I get to bed at about 11 p.m.
Right.
Because I start work at 9 a.m. on Saturday. But if he's not there, then I don't get to film until like 9 p.m. then. Yeah, and then it pushes it out very late at night for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And do you try and like, because you're taking quite a lot from like the engagements you're having with people from the Discord and YouTube comments, how do you tie that into a script that you're writing? Like, are you trying to find through lines and then you're like, oh, well, we're talking about this section, so even though it came later in the episode, it kind of ties in with this relationship and the conspiracies around them? Or do you try and keep
that's
chronologically?
Right. Yeah, well, so originally my first few videos I didn't really do a recap. I just talked about the theories, but I found that as time has gone on, it's really important to do that recap because it contextualizes them. If you don't have that context, it doesn't always work. So yeah,
Right.
like I try and recap it chronologically, but then I'll pull in comments that were relevant to that section. Yeah, if it comes up. So sometimes it will just be like a recap in the beginning and then discussion at the end, and then other times it will be like discussion within the recap. Just depends on the episode, I think. Yeah. Okay. And sometimes it's just not any like new theories to talk about because they didn't, like nothing new came up in terms of like backstory
It was
stuff.
a mostly combat episode, or yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So so it's not always there, but.
So you've seen all of campaign 2?
Yes, I loved campaign 2.
So you started with campaign 2?
Yes, I started at about. I think it was like episode 80 they were up to, and I was like, oh boy, I gotta hustle. So I eventually, or maybe it wasn't that many, but I got caught up at about episode 100 or so, so that I was then watching week to week. Because how many episodes were there? There were not as many. I don't remember. But yeah, I
did like 100 episodes of campaign 2 or something, but it was only like 100 and I don't know 140 or something in campaign 1. It was a longer campaign, and they went all the way up to level 19 or something. Whereas in campaign 2, they just kind of like abruptly stopped, and it kind of shocked me. It made sense as to where they stopped off, but I was really surprised that they were like level 15 and just ended. Like, okay, we're not doing an end game thing. I was expecting kind of like Chroma Concave into Vecna. I was expecting this thing was like, oh wow, this feels really big. I don't know how Matt's going to top this for like the final boss. And then he was like, he's not going to top it. He's just going to end it. Oh, okay, that's how he's not going to top it. That's why it felt like such a final boss moment. But damn, how creepy was that final arc? Oh my god,
that part was crazy. I stayed up so late to watch that, which normally before I was making videos, I would just sort of like not worry about being, super up to date. But yeah, I stayed up so late. Oh my god, it was wild. There were so many amazing moments, like when both the clerics were down, and then I think Caduceus got that he rolled a natural 20 or something on his save, so he popped up with one. It was just.
That was one of the moments where I was like 3 weeks behind, and I was like, oh damn, it's too late. They've just ended. They've just ended the season. I'm hearing all about in the Twitter and stuff. Oh, final thing, and I'm like, final? I didn't know it was going to be the final. Oh god. All right, catch up. Don't turn off all the internet until I've caught up, because I can't get spoilers for this. And then I just like binged it and just caught up like within the week after it had finished, because I didn't want spoiling on it. But yeah, something else, and all of his descriptions and stuff. Matt is just he's got something else going on in his head, isn't he? He's got the. Yeah. It's so
interesting to me that you felt it was really abrupt, because I think maybe because I hadn't watched campaign 1, it felt like a very this feels like a good place to wrap up. I don't know, and then so many people were like, "What?"
Well, that's I want to get across that. I mean, like, it felt like a perfect ending, but because he was ending it without it being with it only being level 15, I just assumed that there was level 16 to 20. And so I was like, oh, this feels weird because it feels like an ending, but he's obviously still going to do another arc after this. And then and then he ended it, and I was like, okay, everything kind of retroactively feels. I understand what he did now. I just didn't expect him to be ending it, which is kind of where the confusion lay.
Yeah, I think that's probably true for a lot of people who watch campaign 1. I think it makes a lot of sense though. I mean, I like to think about Critical Role from the business perspective, which I think for some reason is not always appreciated. I don't know why. It's like they're a big business, Yeah. It makes sense for them to start a new campaign, because new campaign means new characters. It means new merch. It means It means if you're new, if you want to watch Critical Role, but you're 100 episodes in, you're like, well, I'm never going to catch up. But if you start new season, people can come in season 3, you know? So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it definitely makes sense. And it's such an interesting space that they're in. That they're pioneers in it. There's nobody else who's been a huge like production company level business for D&D before. And so it's so interesting to see how that changes it from a regular game, in that like they took 14 episodes to come up with their new team name, Bell's Hells, because it's such a big marketing decision. It's not just a game. It's not just a decision for the game. It's going to be a huge all of the just literally uncountable merchandise items that they have that say Vox Machina or Mighty Nine on them. And they know going into it, whatever name we settle on is going to be plastered on everything.
Yeah.
And that's a huge merchandising decision to make in the game while you're sitting at the table trying to make decisions in character about what decision you would make.
Yeah, and especially when you're in character, you know, but then you're also like the creative director or the head of marketing. Like, it would just be so
weird.
Yeah, it would be so bizarre. I'm actually kind of amazed that they did make it like an at-table decision. I mean, maybe they didn't, and they just acted
maybe they didn't.
Well as possible. You know,
a chance. I definitely think they probably would have talked about it, because they'd talked about the elements. They might not have settled on what it was, or they'd kind of settled on, I think it's going to be one of these things, and then they just say them in character and see which one kind of sticks. Throw spaghetti at the wall.
I think so. Yeah,
but it definitely didn't feel like it was forced or scripted, because the individual elements had kind of come together. Like, they'd talked about Bertrand Bell maybe being referenced in the name and as like an homage to him, and the fact that they're all kind of chaotic and weird. There's a lot of dodgy shit going on. They're all hellions.
Oh my god, such a chaotic party.
Such a weird group. But yeah, it's an interesting design for them, like the new set space and all of the new characters, and having to consider all of that. It makes it for a new realm of like a new industry, essentially. Like I don't know how many people they employ, but it must be a lot of people. They're all working in similar ways to being like, is that a job? Oh wow. You do that for a job? Oh yeah, big job. Yeah, millions a year. What?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating to me.
So how do your Critical Role videos do in comparison to your non-Critical Role videos these days, like your content? Do you find that Critical Role stuff brings in people who then stick around to watch your older stuff with your cooking and your tips and things?
I think there is definitely a small crossover. So lately I haven't been releasing any other content just because I'm really struggling to find the time to do it. So it's been a few weeks since since a non-Critical Role video, but I really want to try and get to at least fortnightly back again. I think like it's doing much better than before Critical Role, but it's definitely a way smaller percentage. And I think the reason for that is that most of my audience are not subscribed, which I think is fairly common, but they're all returning viewers. And I think the reason that they don't subscribe is because they don't want spoilers, which I totally understand.
Right.
Like, I watch a lot of Marvel, and I watch new Rockstars recaps, and I watch every single video they put out, but I never subscribe because I want to watch it when I'm ready to, not when it pops up in my feed and spoils something for me. I think that's what's going on there. So I think they're not getting the notifications about my other videos potentially as well.
The subscribe thing's an interesting one on YouTube, because I find that the videos I watch tend to get recommended in my newsfeed anyway, even if I'm not subscribed to them. Like, I'm thinking before they've recently changed over to their own channel, Screen Rant did pitch meetings. You're familiar with the pitch meetings?
Vaguely, but
very funny comedy skit of a guy pitching the idea of a big movie to himself as the producer, and taking the piss out of all the things about the movie. And he was until he still works for Screen Rant, but they've branched off into their own channel now. But until that point, Screen Rant releases all kinds of just crap that everybody in the comments is like, if it wasn't for this video, I wouldn't be subscribed to Screen Rant. Like, everybody rags on how shitty Screen Rant is as a channel, except for Ryan George and pitch meetings. So I hadn't been subscribed to Screen Rant, but I'd still see every time he released one within an hour, it would be in my feed on YouTube anyway. So I think that is one of the problems from a content creator's perspective, because if people are getting the content, they don't need to subscribe. But YouTube still goes, hey, what are your subscription numbers? This is a big deal, and we need to know. And
I know,
we're gonna measure your metric of success partly against this subscriber number, even though our algorithms ourselves are not pushing people to subscribe.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, I mean, I'm not too worried about it, because it's just like, I'm much more interested in the engagement and chatting with people in the comments and stuff, because that's more valuable to me than stressing about a number. But I think getting the 10K is it's like a nice little round number. I'd be happy with that. Yeah,
I was really so every New Year, whoever I'm hanging out with over New Year's, we all make predictions for the coming year, just like about politics and religion and sports and movies and TV. I don't think anybody predicted that anybody would get a slap at the Oscars this year. That would have been a pretty good prediction.
Yeah.
But there's always a personal category, and this New Year's, start of 2022, I went back over the previous years to see what people had predicted and what they got right and wrong. And under my personal category, I'd predicted my YouTube channel will hit 5,000 subscribers. And I went, oh, did I do that? And I checked, and I was on 4,940 or something. I was 60 subscribers short with 6 hours to go. And so I put out a tweet, and I put out an Instagram thing, and I put on Discord, and I was like, if anybody's not subscribed to my channel, I want to get 60 subscribers so that I can meet my personal prediction from the year.
I subscribed on my second account just to what I should have.
Boost those numbers, and I succeeded technically because I missed the midnight in New Zealand, but I hit it by the time it was midnight somewhere else in the world, like America or something. So I was like, I technically got it by the end of the year. Faces, they grabbed their brother's account and pushed it over.
Exactly, push those numbers over.
So most of my YouTube subscriptions are all fake. They're all double accounts.
That's what we're learning tonight.
So what are your concerns in regards to your content being largely tied to another person's content? Like if something happened with Critical Role, if they stopped making, it's not going to happen. But if they did something that suddenly they were cancelled, they made some big decision that was like, whoa, that's not cool. Like what if something big happened where your content was suddenly now hugely affected? What are your what do you think? What are your thoughts and feelings about that sort of thing?
I definitely have concerns about it. Not necessarily about Critical Role not doing content, because like you say, I just don't think that's going to happen. They're just too big of a production company now.
They're a production company, yeah, huge.
It would take some pretty big skeletons in closets, I think, to get them cancelled at this point. Maybe a slap at the D&D Awards or something, I don't know. I could not imagine. But I think it's also part of because I am a performer, I come from a background of I've written solo shows and things like that. I place a lot of value in my own creativity, and whilst I can put that into my Critical Role videos, of course, at the end of the day, it is still talking about someone else's creativity. So I'd love to get to a point where I have enough reach that my other projects will be just as successful. I would love to start a streamed game at some point, whenever I have mystical free time, stuff like that. So I think I just hope that people will stick around for the other stuff too. And I think it was interesting watching Ginny D do a really big pivot to D&D content, because I was kind of following her when she just started doing her jester videos, cosplay videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And she did that really big pivot to only D&D content, rather than she was doing a lot of cosplay and crafting content
stuff.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so just seeing that people followed her along with that content, I think was inspiring, because they like who she is as a person. It's not just the videos. So I'm hoping that that will be the same for me.
Yeah, and I mean you're a very charming person. You're very easy to talk to, easy to listen to. You've got an on screen personality that isn't off-putting. You've obviously put thought into your background. You're not unlike me, who's just moved house and everything's still in boxes. But you've got good background. You've got good audio on your videos and things like that. So it's clear that it's those sorts of things that people do gravitate towards and stick to and stick around for once you start releasing any amount of content that you do.
Yeah, I think so. And you know, like I love Critical Role. I don't foresee myself stopping that stuff in the future, but you know, it's always nice to know that if I do, hopefully everything won't crash and burn.
Yeah. Do you feel obligated to get a video out as soon as the Critical Role do as well? Like it feels like, is that another pressure that comes along with tying your horse to someone's wagon of being like, they've put a thing out, I'm obligated to do so?
Yes,
or is it more
absolutely.
like a deadline of like it's an incentive for you to do so?
So most weeks it's just like an incentive, but sometimes a few weeks it has been an obligation. Like I'm just like, I don't want to watch it today.
Feel like it, but I got.
I'm just not in the mood. Like I don't want to be on camera today. But you know, it's actually been quite nice because I've had a few videos recently that I had to release a lot later than I usually do, and they've performed just as well. So it's kind of a nice that people are going to find the videos when they come up. So it's not just that like I happen to be there at the time. So that's very reassuring that if I need to like take a few days off, it's actually fun.
I think as well, it helps. Sorry to interrupt. Hold that thought, but it helps with the stuff going to YouTube. Several days later, it gets up on a Tuesday or something New Zealand time. So it means that people, a huge amount of their audience won't watch it live on Twitch, and they only watch it on YouTube. And so you've got that extra few days of like I know that your content and Matt Perkins's content comes out straight away. I won't watch them as they come out, which is not great for YouTube numbers, but I can't watch it because I haven't seen the episode that they're talking about yet because I don't watch it on Twitch. So I wait for it to come out on YouTube. I can watch it at my own pace. I can pause it, stick it on 2x speed. And then once that's done, I'll get around to going back and watching your videos. So I think it does give you that few days of leeway, doesn't it? Yeah,
exactly. I think it'll be interesting to see, moving forward, because like I already know a few dates of my, like I'm going away in May, so it's going to be like it's going to be quite late that week and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward, how that goes. Yeah, it's very strange. A lot of people do get very upset about me posting my video on the same day, even though nobody is forcing them to watch it. It's like you're clicking on the video, you're telling the algorithm you want to see it. Like you're doing this to yourself. But
yeah. Dag's in the chat. What up, Dag? How's it going?
Yeah, I was just saying hello. Yeah, always lich love from Luna, exactly.
By the way, if anybody does have questions in the chat for me or Luna, make sure to message them. I'm sure if you've asked anything that I've missed, I don't always pay the greatest attention to chat while I'm doing short rests. Because I've got someone fascinating to talk to. not you losers.
Not like not like
so Aja asks, can we see your kitty cat?
Probably not, only because it's not the cat, it's more that my kid is like going to bed around this time, so if I go out now I won't be able to come back.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yes, it's his bed.
Another time, if you want to see the cat, you're gonna have to go and check out Luna on Twitch and YouTube.
Oh, she's always in my videos.
Always coming past.
Always in the way.
Tails up in the air.
That's my emote anyway from Molly.
Tree of Dave asks, have you looked at how different your engagement from the audience is from when you are right versus when you are wrong? So you mentioned earlier about like your conspiracies and your theories that you come up with, and then sometimes they're proven right, as in with Chetney, sometimes wrong.
Although it was really funny because I did a video when we first met Chetney. I was like, well, I guess that puts to rest the theory that he's playing a werewolf blood hunter, everybody. We can all say that that's not true.
Because he was all like, I'm a rogue.
And all these people tagging me after, like, so about that, Luna. I don't think I've had any big theories that I've been wrong about, but I also don't tie my card to anything really strongly. Like, I'm very much of the opinion that, like, we don't know. Like, it's fun to have a theory that you can super duper, like, barrack for.
Yeah, I really think it's going to be this. I'm with you. Exactly. I'm with you on. I think you mentioned in one of them Delilah Briarwood being the patron, and other people are like, no, it's Vecna, and I was like, no. They've already done Vecna.
Why would they do Vecna again?
Matt has explored all there is to explore with Vecna. All you have to do is look at the fact that he has almost never used the same monster in a battle twice. Like
exactly.
If he's not even willing to use the same monster twice, he's not gonna use the same big bad guy in the end of the campaign arc twice.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, although it's really funny because yeah, people are like, but maybe it's Vecna posing as Delilah, even though she said it's Delilah. I'm like, but
It's
I think yeah, it is fun. It definitely creates more comment engagement because 50 people will comment and tell me that I got something wrong. So and that's good for
Yeah, I
numbers.
was gonna say
But
that is something that I've seen with other YouTubers. Somebody who will deliberately say something that is incendiary or wrong, or just straight up make a mistake in the in their video,
yeah.
just so that people will comment and the algorithm will pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it on purpose, but I know that it's gonna happen, so it's helpful.
Yeah. What did you think of the animated series?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. I thought the pacing of the first couple episodes was a bit odd, just because
Yeah.
there's just so many characters. I'm so intrigued. In fact, I'm gonna make so my husband Jared doesn't watch Critical Role at all. Like all he knows about it is from me occasionally talking about it with
Right.
him. So I'm gonna make him watch it because I'm so
Yeah.
curious to know his reaction to those first few episodes. Um,
It's
without any
it's
knowledge of
great.
the characters.
It's great that Lizzie has no interest in nerd culture at all. Like, no, doesn't know what D&D is. I've played a modified version of D&D with her once for our anniversary, just because I was like, hey, this is a career now of mine. It's probably about time that I introduce you to what it is. But she obviously has nothing, so she's a fantastic outside eye when I need to go, will this be understandable? When I was writing D&D Logic, and the big push for the Viva guys was, it needs to, because it's going on our main channel, it needs to be accessible to people who don't know what D&D is. And so I ran my script ideas past her and past my brothers and stuff, and just being like, hey, you don't know anything about this game.
Super helpful. Yeah.
So you're gonna force Jared to watch the
Yeah,
animated series at least.
I might even make some videos out of it. That might be fun.
Oh yeah, like
Make
reaction
some
videos
reaction
and
content.
reaction
Yeah.
content always does well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought they did a really great job of highlighting teamwork in Dungeons and Dragons. I loved how they showed all the characters bouncing off one another. I loved that at first the second dragon fight in the cavern. I thought that was so cool. It was such a fun scene, and I liked that they really honed in on the archetype for each character.
Yeah.
Just to make it really clear.
I was reminded how much I hate a stereotypical bard.
Well, yes.
I never remember hating Scanlan as a character from how he was played in the series of season 1, but how he was portrayed in the animated series, I'm like, oh man, I hate this character.
See, that's so funny because I really struggled with Scanlan, and I think it was the whole reason I struggled to get into campaign 1 was I just found him so obnoxious and awful, and I hated him, and so it was really true to my experience.
Interesting.
But I think it's because I don't I kind of know what happens, but I haven't seen that full character arc, that character growth yet.
Real character arc, and it is
tasty.
So
but yeah, I just found him so obnoxious in campaign 1.
Actually thinking about it now, you mentioned it, there were like. In those early days, those Arionocaba days, those episode 1 to 30 kind of days that I consider like a separate thing almost, like them discovering the fact that they're a production studio and they can't really eat on stream anymore, and discovering how to put things in the background of their show and discovering how to use their mics and stuff. I mean, their mics was never really a problem; they're all voice actors. But like those first 30 episodes, not the greatest. I always say if anybody is going to go back and watch Critical Role season 1, start at episode 30 and watch from there.
Yeah. I agree.
The Briarwood arc is definitely the best arc to start in, which is obviously why they started with it for the season. I thought they did a fantastic job with Legends to try and work out a backstory for their group, try and omit Tiberius from the story in a way that's not too like in your face about anything. I think they did a good job. The first episode had me completely confused because I was like, I don't know what they're doing. What is this referencing? Who are they? Where are we starting from? All of this, and I wasn't sold. Second episode, I was like, okay, this is getting better. They're kind of getting into the story. I can see what they're setting up, and then episode 3, I was like, all right, we're into the Briarwood arc now. The first 2 episodes just had to by necessity be the awkward transition of being like, hey, we had however many months or years they were playing in their home game, followed by the first 30 or so episodes of campaign run, and then we need to put all of that into 2 episodes, and then we're into the Briarwood arc, which the rest of it played out amazingly.
I agree.
The thing here's the thing that I'm thinking about a lot lately. Maybe you've got some thoughts on it. The thing that was kind of made really obvious to me as well as a problem that I have with D&D when you're playing it at the table is in the end of Legends, they had this amazing fight at the ziggurat with everybody fighting individually, and you've got pairings of two, and Grog is fighting against what's his face, and Delilah's sliding down the banister, or she's shooting off fireballs, she's shooting off spells and silencing Scanlan and stuff. There's such dynamism there's such a lot of movement, and there's using levels and moving around, and like Grog like spear tackling what's his face, all of this amazing stuff that doesn't happen at a gaming table because everybody's afraid of getting attacks of opportunity. Everybody sticks, you rush into battle and you've got these ideas, and maybe you describe yourself as rushing up towards the thing and taking a big strike, and then as soon as you get there, everybody stays there forever for the rest of the fight, and nobody's moving around, nobody's jumping up onto things and sliding down banisters, firing things at each other. There's not a hand-to-hand combat with Vex and Vax, who are like rolling around and moving and falling off of things. And how have you got a way of dealing with that? Because I'm trying to bring that into my games now, is to be like ways to force people to move, to have some using of the terrain to actually come into play without everybody going, I'm going to stay here because I've got the one target that I'm interested in and I'm going to fight him.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. That's really hard, isn't it? Because the mechanics are so conducive to that style of just standing in the one spot. What I would love to do, I was talking with do you know Zipper on Disney?
No.
He has a YouTube channel, D&D YouTube channel as well. I was chatting with him the other day about Legends, and I was saying I'd really like to explore having like team combos or moves and things, because I really enjoyed, like you say, that very like dynamics. I don't really know how to do that mechanically.
Such an action movie fight, and when I'm doing a game, I want that action movie scene in my combat. I want my combat to feel, and I mean, you kind of get a sense of it when I'm narrating. Whenever I'm DMing, I'm trying to make like cinematic things, and this thing's happening simultaneous with this thing. But it just the mechanics, unless you can narrate that in a really way and get it into it through narration, the mechanics don't lend themselves to that, because everything becomes turn-based. It's one of the things I took the piss out of in one of the episodes of D&D Logic season 1 was like how it started off as everybody's like close-ups and fighting, and then it got zoomed out, and we realized that the orcs and the good guys are all just standing in adjacent lines, just like taking turns to hit each other.
Yeah, it's really weird. I think Dimension 20 does a really great job of having very like dynamic feeling fights, but I don't know if I can say why it feels that way. Maybe I'm just noticing that in Starstruck at the moment, where they have a lot of buffing actions they can do, and I don't know if they're like bonus actions or something, but they do seem to be interacting a lot during combat with each other, which feels very dynamic.
One of the things I'm thinking about, and Wraith kind of alludes to it in the chat there as well, is that like the attack of opportunity seems to be a big player in that, because everybody's so terrified of a movement taking a free strike. But you can't really do away with that easily without also then coming up with some way of what does this Sentinel feat give you, and what are you giving to the rogue to replace the fact that you've just gotten rid of their bonus action disengage, or the monk for the key disengage and things. You've got to account for the fact that disengage exists as a mechanic in the game, and if you get rid of that attacks of opportunity, disengage is gone, and you've nerfed the monk and the rogue and Sentinel feats and stuff. But I would like to be able to have a reaction to do something else as well, like like maybe everybody gets the opportunity to do a parry attack. So if they're doing a strike, you can choose to use the dodge or you can lean into it. In the one-shot Elden Ring, I think that they did Critical Role. I don't know what the mechanics were of what they were using, but I listened to that one rather than watched it.
Oh, it was like the stamina points or something.
Yeah, they had stamina points, and that's another thing that I've always liked to lean into in D&D. Eventually, I want to find a way of using your health or your stamina to do certain things. Maybe you can spend some of your own health or stamina to duck under the attack to half the incoming damage, but by doing so, obviously you're using some of your own vitality. I liked the way that they would do it, and from what I was picking up during that one shot, they could choose to lean into it, and they would take all of the damage but then they could make a reactionary attack to the guy, so they were like coming into the
Mm-hmm.
sword and making their own attack, or they could use to dodge, which would they would use some stamina to try and dodge all of the incoming attack, or they could deflect or something, and there was different roles that they could do. So when I was listening to that as a podcast, I was like, man, I really should try and look up what system they were using, or because I know a lot of it was Matt Mercer's homebrew, wasn't he? So I don't know if he.
I think so. Yeah, he did explain it. I think
any of it.
briefly at the beginning,
Yeah,
of it being
probably missed
like
it.
I think it was like something like, I didn't watch the full thing, but I think it was like 5. They got like 5 points that came back at the end of every round, so they could use it each round to do something wacky like that. Yeah.
It could be. It could. Maybe I'll look into that a little more. Look up what he was doing, because something like that is kind of what I've been toying with in my head for a couple of years now. Of like how to make fights a little more dynamic, how to make them more enjoyable and more cinematic for people to do. Give them more options of reactions and things.
Yeah, Joe says in the chat too that sometimes it helps if the DM does a lot of movement too. I guess maybe just give your bad guys a free disengage.
Yeah, well, I mean, I try to do that as well. Like sometimes I will, I'll like dodge someone to the side out of turn. If somebody does a fireball and I make a dexterity save, I'll go, oh, he dives over here, gets behind the wall, and nobody goes, no, you can't move outside of your turn or whatever. And I tend not to try and like leave somebody's melee and say you don't get an attack of opportunity because it's part of his dexterity save, because then you're introducing like mechanical reasons for it. I'll just move them around the battlefield, and sometimes I'll like grab my 2 minis and I'll be like, all right, you're fighting and you're pushing him back this way, and I'll just try and introduce, and I won't like make them. What's your speed? Can I move them this way? I'll just grab them on the battlefield and move them in that way. So I do kind of introduce some of that sometimes, and like try and encourage people, hey, look, you've pushed him up against this wall, and then for his attack he's going to jump off of the wall and push around, and he's going to get behind you, and just like introduce like you can move around within somebody's melee range without an attack of opportunity, so at the very least introduce that. I also
I think that's good.
I also introduced I took away what do they call it, flanking, in my games, because it creates that kind of conga line of people. Oh, I get flanking on this guy, and then you've got 3 people in a line, and then if the bad guy goes around the other side, maybe he gets. And I instead said like you get advantage for things like surrounded. So if you've got 3 on 1, then you can't get 3 on 1 in a conga line. So it encourages people to run into battlefield and use their strategy a little bit more on the field. Or you get advantage for. You can always petition me for advantage if you say like, hey, can I get use effect that he's distracted or looking the other way? That's one of the things that I think is missing from 5th edition for simplicity. I understand why they took it away, but directionality, like you can do, like a crocodile can do a bite attack and a tail attack at the same creature that's in front of them, because there's no directionality. And new players particularly will often ask me, can I sneak around behind him and he can't see me so I get advantage or something? And I say, mechanically, rules is written, no, you can't, because there's no behind him. He sees in every direction at all times. But yeah, man, if it's just been the crocodile's turn and he's just bitten the monk in front of him, I will absolutely say that you get advantage for if you make your action to sneak around behind him and go for his tail. But if you fail, like I'll always try and have like a way off. I'll be like, if you're just doing this for flavor, then you can just do it. But if you're doing it and you want some kind of mechanical advantage, like advantage or a +2 bonus or whatever, then I'll have you roll a stealth check, and if you succeed, you get the bonus. If you fail, he gets a free attack at you with his tail or something. So I try and introduce some kinds of dynamism like that.
I think that's good. Something I really want to try is, I feel like I'm only just getting to the point now where I'm very like, I like to follow rules. I like to follow guidelines. So I feel like I'm just getting to the point now where I feel like I want to start playing around a bit more with the rules and being okay with being a little bit more loosey-goosey. But also just, like, I really enjoyed our game the other night, because just having, like, a lot of inspiration flying around just makes for some really fun moments, because people are not necessarily as afraid to try things, I think. When you like, it's free, I might as well try it. Like,
your player feels a little more opportunity to try things. They feel like a little bit more of a hero, which is kind of the stories that I want to tell anyway. The kinds of stories I want to tell is that my players are winning. And also, it means that I, as the DM, can go a little harder on you, because I know that I'm going a little easier on you as well. I can give you monsters that are hitting a little bit harder, which makes you feel like more of a hero when you take them out. I really enjoyed that game. That was one of my favorite games that I've run in a while. That heist game.
I had such a good time, because it was such a little tangent, but like the only other time we played together was GaryCon last year.
Yeah.
And that was like not 5th edition. and it was my first streamed game, and I just remember it being so dark. And I just like don't think I did very well. So it was just I had a lot of nerves coming into that game, and then it was just like so much fun. And yeah, very relaxing. So it was good.
It was a lot of fun to play with you. It was a fantastic game. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed how much everybody got into it. All of the characters, the backstories that you gave me, I tied them in, and then you all like actually responded to them when I introduced the fact that I tied them in. And, oh, that's somebody from my character, my backstory. So I can. This is Robert giving me the invitation to like jump in, and this is my scene now because he's introduced my NPC. And
honestly, I think that was super duper helpful because I think especially for myself as a new person playing on camera, I feel like it's a very different environment. Not very different, but it's a different environment. And yeah, having that like permission of like this is somebody you know. Now you can talk to them. Yeah, I think it's really good.
You can talk to this person now. Wraith's using my words against me now, saying that tomorrow's dragon fight's going to be fine because I always like my players to win. It's the exception when you guys are when the Twitch chat is hive minding and completely doing things that I didn't expect, taking things a completely different direction.
You got to go a lot harder when it's 100 people.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I'm aware that we're pretty much out of time now. I don't want to keep you up all night, not being a night person and having a kid to put to bed and all that. So, is there any other questions from the chat that we are forgetting? Anything else you wanted to discuss? If you want to watch the heist game that we were just discussing, it was part of GaryCon Live. And it was a lot of fun for the next couple of days. You can find it over on GaryCon Live's VODs, and I'm told that I'll be getting a copy of it. I've been poking them and prodding them and been like, can you get me a copy of this, please? And when I do, I'll be putting it on my YouTube, so you'll eventually be able to find it there as well.
That'll be awesome.
Ray says, I heard it straight from your mouth. You can't take it back. I have evidence. You're going to go easy on us tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it depends.
Cool. Well, it doesn't look like we're getting any other questions. Joe asks, do I have a Discord? I do indeed. There's the link for it in the chat. Thank you very much. Fancy asked the question. Sorry, I missed it. I'm starting with a migraine, so I'm losing some of my vision in the middle here. Oh yeah, there it is. Fancy asked, from your games, what's been your most favourite or epic moment?
Ooh.
Good question.
Well, for me, as a player, I recently did a full class switch from Paladin to Barbarian in our Curse of Strahd game. And it's something that Jared is the DM for that we've been sitting on for a couple of months. So I've kind of been thinking about the way my character was going and how it just didn't make sense for them to be this like person of faith anymore after all the horrible things that happened in Barovia. So yeah, we did this full class switch and it was so exciting in a battle. Like it was a really big fight. We'd been saving it for this moment to be like, I go into a rage, and all the other players are like, wait, what? What do you mean you go into a rage? And I'm like, yeah, remember how last week I said I took my armor off and none of you noticed? But I had to make a big deal of like, I removed my like ceremonial armor, and they're like, yeah, cool.
Don't know why she's doing that. I'm just going to lower her AC, but whatever. Yeah.
Exactly, but it was just a very fun and satisfying moment, and to just like let loose and play a character who's just like,
nice.
Yeah, so that was probably my most recent.
We experienced the exact opposite of that in Dag's game for GaryCon Live. Dred's character was Barbarian and went Paladin. At the end.
That's so cool.
And at the end of the game, he was like he encountered like one of the old dragon gods essentially, because we were level 6, so Dag thought it was appropriate to have fighters against a dragon god. It's a one shot. So we're encountering this thing, and he's like talking about how he is the progenitor of all of rage and the concept of anger and rage and things. And if you fight me, you have to fight what's within you. And Dred's character's like, then I take an oath to redeem myself, and blah blah blah. And then he became a level 6 Oath of Redemption paladin in that moment.
So cool. I love that.
Good stuff. I like moments like that in games. All right. I'll leave it there. As I say, I'm kind of starting to lose my eyesight to a migraine here. I think it's because I've been staring at the the key light for so long now. But
I got the same with my ring light.
It's at time anyway, so it's good. I can go and get some rest from it. Hey, Matthew Perkins is still here. Oh,
hey,
hope you didn't hear all the things Matthew Merkins. Didn't hear all the things we were saying about you, did you? No. So one last time for the people who have joined this conversation from my community, where can people find you? What's if they liked your who you are, then where can they see more of you?
Yeah, so I'm going to pop it in the chat. You can click on my name in chat if you want to catch me on Twitch. I stream times a week. And YouTube, you can find me by just searching Luboffin. I'm Luboffin everywhere. Twitter, Instagram. I technically have a TikTok account, but I don't know how to use it. So that's that.
TikTok's one of the ones that I've never used. I've been like, I don't know. I don't know what these kids are doing on the ticking the talks.
Kids these days with their names.
I'm experiencing fine enough growth without it. I don't need to worry about it. I'll get into it eventually, maybe, if it sticks around. Once they stop spying on you. And if people join us from your community and don't know who I am, I'm Robert Hartley, GM. You can see my name and how it's spelt right there beneath me, Robert Hartley, GM. You can find me on all of the places because I know how to do consistent marketing, all of the places except TikTok. Put my name in, and if you find me, if you don't find me, it's because I'm not on that platform. I do Dungeons and Dragons for a living, so I'm always doing related streams and things. And as I say, in about 12 hours, I want to say, the clocks are about to go back, so I'm trying to make account for that. 12 hours from now, I think, I will be back on my stream right here to do the finale of the current arc of the campaign of Twitch Tales, an interactive D&D campaign where you guys, as the chat, get to decide on what is happening in the story. So make sure to be there for that. It's going to be an epic ending battle between a whole bunch of the King's Army and a green dragon, and of course your character Apis Hive, a level 5 ranger.
But it's going to be easy because
it's going to be so easy because I like my players to win, right? Yeah, that's what I said. All right, for now though, we will send you guys on a raid. Have you got any suggestions for people to raid? Currently, I have nobody that I follow online.
I don't have anyone that I follow online except for Critical Role.
yeah, Critical Role is doing a rerun. Captain Robert's doing a rerun. I've got some recommended channels. Anybody in the chat know any D&D community streamers that we should know about? Don't tend to stream this late on a Saturday, obviously, so I don't have a lot of people I tend to raid. Anybody in the chat want to suggest a raid for preferably someone in the D&D community? He's leading us into a false sense of security. Don't buy it. Yes, and I've pre-rolled initiatives. Nothing to worry about there, of course.
That's right, chat. Just press the big buttons because it's all gonna be fine.
Well, nobody's suggesting any raids, so maybe this is the first time that I don't raid anybody because there's no one on. Yeah, there's no one on. I don't tend to like to raid just randoms because they might be garbage, and I've kind of sent them people at that point. They might not be nice people.
To me as well once.
So nobody's online. Let's just end the stream. That's a bizarre feeling for me. I don't remember doing this in so long.
I'll quickly go live and then.
Yeah, quickly go live. I'll send you. In fact, that's a good idea. I'll just send you over because then people can drop a follow on your channel. There we go. Raid Luboffin. You know, it's all about removing that one hurdle from people, right? If it's a single thing that they have to click, you're gonna get more people actually doing it than if it's two things they have to click.
Yeah, if you follow, you'll get 300 gold coins on my channel.
Yeah, raids are always good. You get
that you can use for things.
You get coins on my channel for joining the raid. You get coins on Luboffin's channel for clicking the follow as well.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for everybody in the chat joining us. Thank you, Luna, for joining me as well.
Thank you.
The time. It's been an absolute delight. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for a dragon fight. Bye.
Bye.